Hello, everyone. Welcome to another mess we're in, where we talk about the psychosis that the world is. I've got the wrong microphone in. This will mess things up. The psychosis that the world is undergoing at the moment because of privileged Americans. How have you two been? While I plug in my microphone.
I'm good. I wanted to just comment on Artie's object art today. So it was like last times, but you've deconstructed it. It was in a pyramid. Look at Graham. What the hell are we seeing, Graham?
Sorry,
what's going on?
I'm changing things. Leave me alone.
Okay. You've deconstructed it. And is that a rubber duck?
You don't get that on the BBC, folks. You don't get that on the BBC.
Okay.
Yes, I have deconstructed my tower of poppers. We were talking about last night. I was very disappointed that no one was able to identify what these little yellow bottles were. I thought it was like our entire audience was a bunch of British homos, but apparently not.
Are they poppers? God Almighty! I went through a popper stage.
You did?
Yeah.
But you're not a gay man. You're like the only.
No, I'm not. But they were drugs that were freely available, and you could buy them. And,
somebody joked that like teens could get them at the store in Britain, so you could buy them instead of like real drugs.
Yeah.
Well.
And I never felt an urge to place something in my bottom half, but I did, but because I know that's what it's good for. But I did take it, and you get this rush to the head. And then once I took it when I was drunk, and it was, oh my God, it was a nightmare. It was just horrific, And I was like, wow, gay men use this all the time. I couldn't quite see it, but
it's an accessory to the main act, which is really the real fun.
It was a short-lived stage for me. I like the way you've got them lined up for every day of the month. That's kind of very revealing.
I've now Googled poppers and I'm caught up.
That's right. You've basically been through the 1970s disco phase just in that one Google.
Yeah. So I'm not sure whether, it's been the usual insane week. There's so many nutty things going on. We're spoiled for choice, really. We don't have a guest this week because I felt that I wasn't hearing enough from you guys. I've missed you. Even though we've had some brilliant guests, I do like hearing what you've been up to. So what's been kind of occupying you at the moment, Helen, first of all?
Well, I've been enjoying the saga of the disappearing and reappearing Joss Pryor from Twitter. Joss Pryor has been banned a couple of times and has come back a couple of times. And it's been quite an interesting viewing, because although I find Joss Pryor obnoxious and aggressive and a bully and unpleasant and not particularly smart, I don't think that Joss Pryor should be banned permanently from Twitter, because I think the bar to permanently banning somebody from Twitter should be really, really, really high. Yeah. And none of those should apply. However, I have been enjoying the watching it play out, especially the cries of the trans activists who seemingly could just not look further than the ends of their noses when trying to ban women, without any sort of thought that the same rules could be at some point turned back on them, or the same sort of mass reporting, the same manipulation of words to say, look, this, I'm feeling threatened or unsafe, etc., etc. And I genuinely don't understand how they couldn't possibly think, hang on, this could sometimes apply to us. And they're all up in arms saying, oh my God, look, this mass reporting, this such a terrible thing. This person, Joss Pryor's been banned. Oh my God, Twitter support, we should all leave Twitter. And I'm like, hey, where have you been? Did you not think that just, this insane sort of idea that because you're on the right side, or you think that you're right, that everything should happen to the other side that could never happen to you, even if you display the same sort of behaviour. And so I've been enjoying watching that sort of play out. Just Prior's back now, as I think they probably should be, to be fair. But Twitter, I also think that I should be. Putting that out there. Because I just wanted to say, because last time I said here on the show that I was now putting an appeal in every day. I got a mail from Twitter that evening saying we're still not restoring your account, and and it was the version of the Twitter mute, and plus don't reply again because we're not going to reply to you. We won't be monitoring this account. In case Twitter is surreptitiously listening in, I don't think Just Prior should be banned, but I don't think I should be banned either.
Yeah, I still think it's extraordinary that you were banned for just engaging in conversations with people about a rational question. That's shocking. But do you know what Joss Prior? Do you know what the offense was? The latest one, or one of the latest ones was?
Well, apparently, and this did make me laugh. It was somebody managed to get them banned for using the word cis against a woman who didn't identify as cis.
Hey,
said, I'm not cis. I don't want to be cis. So
that's good to know.
I think
do that more often.
So I do think it was quite a clever ploy that somebody tried, because I mean, why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you try it if trans activists can say, well, I've been misgendered? I think somebody said, I do not identify as cis. They're misidentifying me. They did come back the next day, but then they were banned again. But we don't know why. That was kind of kept quiet. But then they came back again.
That reminds me. Did you see the CIA? The CIA's recruitment ad. It's hilarious.
Yes,
it's so funny. It's so funny. Like, I am a cisgender woman with mental trauma. It's like, what the fuck are you doing in the CIA?
Well, I don't know. If you've seen Homeland, that sounds like the kind of person they put in the CIA.
Yeah.
But,
I watched Homeland and I thought, that's the job for me. But like, I mean, Michael Tracey, I think his name is another Substackian. He wrote a brilliant piece about it where he said that they're doing two things. They're trying to appeal to this latest generation of idiot students from Hale and Yarmouth who believe in all this stuff, and also, as he pointed out, it costs them nothing. It costs them nothing. They don't have to change. They can keep toppling governments all over the world. They can keep undermining their enemies. They can keep, becoming another kind of seat of power in the US. And all they have to do is use words like cisgender, and all these idiots will think that they're great.
I know, intersectional. I am intersectional. Like,
yes,
but
I know.
Funny
I think that was.
Yeah.
Sorry, no, Artie, go.
Oh, I was just saying, CIA has always skewed famously right wing. They've always had a hard time. It's a very right wing institution that has had a really hard time not being extremely right wing and kind of reactionary. That's been an issue within the CIA always. And isn't it funny that they're trying to recruit people outside of the hard right? Now that the hard left has become just as fascist as the hard right. Now they're like, okay, now we like them.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a real meeting of minds, Yeah. Authoritarianism in whatever form we'll have it. If you're an authoritarian, join the CIA. That's the message.
Yes.
The other thing about it is that, I genuinely feel that you would have someone happily joining in with the drone bombing of a poor country if someone is using their pronouns correctly. I genuinely think they will just think, I feel a little bit bad about this, but
blown to smithereens, but you got the pronouns right.
Yeah, so. but my boss called me she today, so they're obviously on the right side of history. Anyway, doink. Sorry, that was me pressing a button and the button went doink, and that fired a drone.
You're a drone queen. You're the drone queen today.
But that's the thing. That's the thing about all of this that I think is a really interesting aspect of it. And it's something that I want to think about more and write about at some point. But basically, I think that what happened, I may have said this before, but during Brexit and because of Brexit and Trump, which were the two greatest victories the right have had in years, I think, the left went a bit mad. and they kind of created their own little version of reality where that's kind of like a playpen, you know, and they can play in the playpen, and it doesn't affect anything outside of the playpen. You know what I mean? Like that famous footage from the Socialist Democratic Convention where it's just a bunch of men shouting, "Will you please stop using gendered language?" It's just the funniest thing. No one can say anything because there's all these men in the audience who keep pulling them up, and it's always men. It's never women. You know, there was a woman at the podium trying to speak, but you know, she's constantly being interrupted by men. You know, so it's like a kind of play area where they can, you know, and the only damaging thing about it is that, you know, the play area damages people like ourselves who are trying to bring attention to some of the real problems with this stuff, you know, because when you say I fuck your playpen, you know, they just go mad, you know. It's
no, but we have to stop humoring the kids in the playpen, the babies. It's all these people who are not really in the playpen but are humoring it because they think they'll get in trouble, or they think you just should leave them alone, or it's for the good in the long run, or whatever stupid reasons people put up with this shit. We have to stop that. I think we need to turn our attention a little bit away from the playpen towards the adjacent people who, you know, the HR departments who really only have one of the playpen babies in their entire department, and everyone else toes the line of that one baby. You know? Oh,
you know something? That's another thing I've been thinking a lot about. Sorry I don't want to talk too much, but the other thing I've been thinking about.
I'm coming too.
Well, I am a man, but like the thing is, we did a joke a few weeks ago on my site called "Who is the Chase Strangio in your organization?" And I think that's what's happening to a lot of places. There's one or two or maybe three people, and they're narcissistic little Hitlers who are imposing this because they have the wind in their sails. They're imposing this on the rest of the workforce. For instance, I know someone who works in David Schneider's company. David Schneider's company is called That Lot, and their internal newsletter libeled J.K. Rowling. David Schneider, sorry, I should explain. David Schneider was an old friend of mine. I worked on the day. I did a little tiny bit of work on the day-to-day, which he was in. And you know, I thought he was a level-headed dude, but his company is libeling J.K. Rowling in their internal newsletter, and David is now putting his pronouns in his email. David, we know you're a man. We know you're a man. You know, and this is just. I know David Schneider doesn't believe that women should. You know, men should be in women's sports or rape crisis centers. If he does, I'd like him to actually say that out loud. But writing your pronouns in your bio is a way of pretending you agree with them so that you don't get in trouble, you know?
It's not even, I think it's even further back than that. Writing your pronouns in your bio is simply a way of saying, for people who don't really care or don't really have any stake in it, or haven't even really thought about it. It's a way of saying, oh yeah, I'm progressive and left, and I'm a good corporate citizen. And most people, I genuinely think that most people have no idea about the political context of it. Yes. And I do think that this is something that maybe we should start a challenge within organizations, is to say to them, look, this isn't devoid of political context. By including some people, you are actually making an environment that more hostile for women. Exactly. So there is a conflict here, and you have to understand this. It's like saying, let's "Make America Great Again" in our bios. You know, you could just say on one hand, well, it's "Make America Great Again." Why wouldn't you want to make America great again? Everyone should want to make America great again, but it isn't devoid of political context, and everyone knows this. And even if a company doesn't know this, then they should be explained to, and they should read up about it, and they should say, okay, yeah, I see the point. I see the problem here. Yeah. So yeah, I'd imagine that's where David is. No, Artie, are you disagreeing with us?
No, sorry, that was a yes, no. It was just like an amen kind of no. Like I agree, but that's bad.
Never heard of it. You're right. Never heard of a yes, no. No, go ahead, Arnie. What were you going to say?
I wasn't going to say anything, I don't think. It said that, I think it's an extraordinary point about comparing it to Make America Great Again, or maybe support our troops or something. Like, what do you mean you don't support the troops?
All of this is linguistic. All of this is linguistic ideological capture. You know, they're based, or it's a linguistic, excuse me, that's a boring phrase by now. It's a linguistic coup. You know, they are trying to impose a vision of society that is completely sexist, completely homophobic, completely misogynistic. I saw someone today tweet about, and this was a gay woman tweeted this, but she said something like, "Who the fuck cares about lesbians?" You know, like the LGBT Alliance tweeted something about them and said, "Who cares about lesbians?" Extraordinary thing to say, you know. And it's like, you've got to know that when you put your pronouns in your bio, you're implicitly agreeing with these people who hate lesbians. Noah Halpin's group in Ireland had a meeting for BGT people, right? So BGT, it said for a meeting for BGT. I'll see if I can screen share it and draw it up. But a meeting for BGT people and trans women.
Oh, I was like, Barry Gibb and trans? Like, what is
but it looks like just a very childish kind of revenge against the LGBT Alliance. But the most important thing about it is that they're literally saying lesbians have no place in our LGBT so-called community. I find it extraordinary that they're actually saying that out loud now. That's two people I've seen say that. You know,
that is, I mean, I guess they can say, well, it comes down to gay, but it's like that sort of Mott and Bailey, isn't it? It's like you can say, actually, well, they come under gay, but it's a very purposeful dropping of the L from something that has been so long LGBT. You know, it isn't not purposeful.
Yes.
No, and we're taking what this sort of internalized lesbophobia and almost validating it. It's like, we will never say even the word lesbian around you because we know you hate yourself so much as a trans man. You know?
I saw something that really made me sad the other day. Amongst all the validation that you see and all the photographs of kind of ripped trans men with you know, facial hair, and they say, "Oh, do you think this person should go to the toilet in a men's toilet or whatever, you know, or in a woman's toilet?" I just saw a single comment, and someone said, "Oh, I know a lot of trans men. There's a lot, you know, I live in San Francisco. I know a lot of trans men. They look like small women with beards." You know, and I thought that was the saddest thing because you know, I mean, in some cases it's not true. Some trans men pass very well, and in fact, as I said before, trans men pass a lot better than women because the facial hair is such a coded thing in our heads, you know. However, I have a feeling that there's a lot of people who are just being disgracefully fooled and misled by LGBT organizations.
Look at that. Look at Elliott Page. It was on Twitter again yesterday. Yeah. I think there's an interview with Oprah. Is that coming out today or tomorrow or something? And again, it's really, really sad to watch. I think the clip I watched was really sad. Elliott Page looks very unhappy and gaunt, and is talking about top surgery and how happy that's made them, but they certainly don't look happy. However, there was one thing that was a quote in the article around it that Elliott Page had said: "If you are also not going to allow trans kids to play sports, children will die. And it really is that simple." And I've got to say, if Oprah didn't challenge this, then Oprah is a shit interviewer.
Yeah.
Because that's got to be challenged. You have to challenge that. And genuinely, if that went unchallenged, then I've got to say, Oprah, what the fuck are you doing there? It's just, you know, that's not an interview at all. That's just giving someone a platform to just talk narcissistically about themselves. That has to be challenged. That has to be challenged. There's so many ways. It's like nobody is not allowing trans kids to play sports. No one is doing that.
You know,
already, what the hell? And children will die. Children will literally die. What the hell are you talking about? Genuinely, what are you talking about?
And isn't there something
narcissism
extraordinary?
It's indeed extraordinary.
I still can't get past the pack. This is like early, just before I peaked trans. Wouldn't it be glorious to see a trans woman on a podium in a men's sports? Wouldn't that show the world how wonderfully diverse men can be and how you can express yourself as a transsexual and still win a men's award? I just thought that would be the most obvious progressive route, would be to maintain sex-based sports categories and still make sure that trans people can have a space within them, even though they're going to have to sacrifice some of the hormones they take or something. That would just be such a wonderful expression of human diversity and of gender diversity. Why are they going for this? Like, it's just so ridiculous. Those boys who identify as girls. And I also thought it was really interesting when Caitlyn Jenner came out in opposition to I've
got that on my list. List.
Okay. But Caitlyn, I found it just as interesting when Caitlyn Jenner said, he said, boys who identify as trans girls or something. The language he used was very sex-based in itself. And I thought that was just as interesting as the fact that he came out against trans women in sport.
But what was also really interesting about that was honestly, the quote tweets. I answered somebody in my Twitter account that I don't have Twitter, if you're watching, saying, they said, how is Caitlyn Jenner, and I'm putting the brackets in here now, who was an Olympic, or who is an Olympic medalist and a trans woman, how is Caitlyn Jenner at all qualified to talk about this issue?
That's brilliant.
Oh no, who's more qualified is Sulu. Sulu from Star Trek is the person who knows more about.
Oh yeah. It's funny, isn't it? It's very. We must talk at some point. I mean, maybe now is the point. I don't know, but this group of people who they always reference, who must be asked the questions, who must kind of advise, who must appear in dramas about trans people, who are committing suicide in just waves, who are being killed, who are being, who have to run from venue to venue because they're being chased by murderous thugs. Like who are these people? Where are all the news stories about the murders? Where are all the news? Where are all the suicides? There aren't any. My worry about the suicides thing is it might become a self-fulfilling prophecy.
Because that's something they have control over. People aren't attacking these people, but they can attack themselves to prove their own vulnerability.
Exactly. That's something I'm very worried about. They're almost being encouraged to do so by trans rights activists. It really is.
It's certainly a massive part of the narrative, isn't it? It's a huge part of the narrative. Vulnerability to the point of just saying to them, threaten suicide and you can get what you want. This is what Page was saying, isn't it? I mean, the Page was basically saying, if you don't let boys play in girls' sports, then these boys will kill themselves. What kind of fucking message is that giving to girls in society? Telling girls that they have to move over and put these boys' interests before their own, otherwise these boys are going to kill themselves. I mean, fuck off.
But the thing about Page, you really have to. I mean, Page. Do you know what I was reminded of? Karen Carpenter. That's what Page reminded me of.
Paige, she was the very first. She was the person who spawned, anorexia and eating disorders were not a major phenomenon in the Western world until Karen Carpenter happened. Sorry, go on.
Yeah. Well. I just got the same sense of a slight feeling of doom around her. She, as you say, she looks gaunt, she looks skeletal, and we know that a lot of people have been saying that the same type of girls who years ago would have been anorexic are now saying that they're actually trans and so on. It seems to be an expression of a similar thing inside girls. A same kind of rejection or escape from a society that sexualizes them and turns them into pieces of meat.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah. So I just feel. I mean, it's terrifying as well. If Oprah, I'm sure she didn't say this because I didn't see any news reports saying it, but Oprah should say, listen, are you eating? Are you eating healthily? Because you don't look well. You don't look well. And it's obvious that the transitioning is not making her happy. It's not doing anything for her.
But genuinely, I don't, I think Paige's friends and family and doctors should be the ones to sort of challenge that part of it. But Oprah should absolutely challenge the stuff that Page says. She's given Page a platform and is allowing Page to talk shit and make people believe these things to be true, and it isn't true. And you've got to challenge this. I mean,
no, but people don't. This is what happened to my friend who was trans, who died. Nobody was helping this person. This was an autogynephile who was just going further and further down the rabbit hole until they eventually died. And it's just within the trans world, you're just affirm. No matter how bad they're doing, just keep on affirming, keep on that affirmation train. And I fear that maybe that'll happen to Ellen Page. That would be so horrible, that if everybody's just going to affirm, and that's not going to help her. She's not going to get better. Her dysphoria is not going to alleviate itself. Her distress in her own body is not going to get better. This is what happened to my friend. And I'm so mad because it was the trans community that killed this person by nobody stepping in and saying, this isn't working,
I read
Sweden seems to have stepped in. Did you see the news on that?
And that's because of the wonderful Kiera Bell.
I think that certainly fed into it. If people aren't aware, Sweden seems to have come out and saying that no trans children or no children who identify as trans are going to be treated with hormone treatment or any sort of chemical treatment until they're past 16, I believe. So no one, absolutely none of them beneath that, unless there's some very sort of mitigating circumstances with therapists and doctors and parents involved, which I think is a really good start. I mean, that's a whole country that has now said this. And as these things went, country after country said, this is how we do it. We've now said that we're not doing it, although it was challenged by the Fox beta and went down a bit. But now Sweden's doing it. I can't help thinking that other countries are going to be looking around saying, oh, hang on, we don't want to be last. We don't want to be last to realise that this was a terrible thing. So I do believe that, now there's two. If there's one, you're an outlier and you can be called cranks and awful. And, you're just violent and awful. And we need to emigrate and seek asylum elsewhere. However, if as soon as other countries start doing it, it's beginning, I think, maybe of dominoes slightly coming down at least for children under the age of 16.
It's interesting, isn't it? Like, the Fox killer has kind of. Sorry, we're talking about Jolyon Maugham, who's a lawyer for the Good Law Project, who is doing his best to try and allow children to take puberty blocking drugs, despite 3 judges saying they shouldn't because they can't. What's the word? Consent. They can't consent. Yeah. Sorry. Yes, I've never understood that word. No, I'm only joking. But the thing is, they.
That's so bad.
I know, that's a really sick joke that I just told. But jokes are jokes. You're allowed to tell jokes.
Despite what comedian. Throw him off.
Despite what the under 30s say, you're allowed to tell jokes. But Jolyon Maugham is interesting because he undermined the Kiera Bell ruling by saying that parents can now get their kids, and this was passed, that parents can get their under 16s the drugs that they're looking for, right? So I was talking to a friend, and she said something very interesting about that. She said that that's kind of good, because that will just show. That will make the parents stand out in stark relief, really, to everyone else, because those parents are going to be the real nuts, the ones who like Jesse Thorne's, wife told her kid that some girls have a penis, and the kid said, "Oh yeah, that's what I did." 4 years old, they did that to their kid. So I'm hoping that Jolyon's Jolyon's got another funny thing. What we were saying about the CIA earlier and how they can present. Jolyon's a man who helps millionaires dodge taxes, right? There was a Daily Mail story about it recently. And he's doing a seminar on Eventbrite called "Speaking Truth to Power." How young activists can get around the libel laws. So he's telling teenage kids how they can smear people like J.K. Rowling without getting into trouble. This is a fucking tax break millionaire fucking snake oil legal prick, you know, and he's doing this. Absolutely amazing, you know. But it just goes to show, if you just use pronouns, if you tick all the boxes you're supposed to, you can be the most, you know, right-wing person in the world, and it doesn't matter, you know. You can just do what you like, you know.
Well, it's like there's this idea I've been thinking about, the idea of how it goes to something Helen said a minute ago too that just sparked it. That it's all about a narrative. People want to maintain a narrative. I was just remembering a couple years ago, I met some Russian guy. I was at a party or something. Straight Russian guy, and he just seemed very keen to like show me that he's so cool with the gays. And he was also very patriotic and proud of his Russian background, and he was very proud to be Russian. We were talking, shooting the shit, drinking, high, whatever, at this party, and he's talking about how wonderful Russia is. And I couldn't not. We're talking about gays. We're talking about Russia. I couldn't not bring up, you know, there's a lot of homophobia in Russia, and the current regime is doing terrible things to gays and lesbians. And he said something like, "That's not important." And I was like, I didn't want to press it too hard because this is like I'm trying to be nice to someone I've just met, who's being very nice to me. But I was like, well, it kind of is happening though. Like they're killing gays and lesbians. They're killing us. You know, the culture's really, really vicious to gays right now. And he was like, but that's not what Russia is about. And the idea was this, like, it's like, I don't want the story of Russia to be tainted by the story of the homophobia in Russia. So I'm just going to try to suppress that part of the story. You know what I mean? Yeah, he was just like, my pride and my patriotism and my Russianness, it can't be tainted by the homophobia. And instead of thinking, I know I'm going to have to go and take action to stop the homophobia and make it not happen anymore, it's just like, I just want to keep that out of the story. And I see this with trans activists who are like, you point out things like, okay, there are a lot of predators, a lot of charlatans, a lot of people with a lot of problems. There are very decent people who are doing well as transsexuals, and there are some who are in mental despair. There are very decent people who have a lot of allegiance to women, who are very kind to women, and there are a lot of people who are outright misogynist. You know, there are very good law-abiding citizens, and there are a lot of criminals. There's a lot of problems within the trans movement, and they just say, that's not the story of trans, you know? The story of trans is wonderful people
everywhere.
The story of trans is you have to just talk about the good and make everything, just speak about it in a story, in a tone and narrative of happiness and sunshine and rainbows, you know? But it's like, you can't do that. You can't just pretend the problems don't exist because they don't fit your narrative. Everybody seems to think in terms of narratives. It's so weird. Yeah.
But you're absolutely right. And I think it's quite clear why, especially for the trans one, that they don't want this narrative. It's because it's really, to answer it, to actually face up to it, means facing up to the fact that the crimes that are being committed here are male crimes. You know, it's if you face up to these crimes and the wanting to break down of women's boundaries, you know, you have to, first of all, it's the very beginning of that part of the narrative is because they are male. And that just cannot be said. It's an unsayable thing, and therefore that whole part of the story must be shut down. You know, that door must be shut, and we can't talk about that in that room. We're closing it off.
It's shocking. And it touches on this, to go back to the Russian guy by comparison. It was his patriotism. He had a sort of tribal identity with Russia and Russian pride. And there's a sort of tribal identity on the left of like, this is our thing. This is LGBT activism. So it really, really is hard to dislodge the story of the beauty of trans and say there's actually a lot of problems with that story, because it really, really, you have to dislodge people's sort of patriotic tribal identity, which is something that people guard, you know, very strongly.
Yeah. It's fascinating, isn't it? That, like, I noticed when Owen Jones did his disgusting letter signed that disgusting letter against Suzanne Moore, and Suzanne Moore, I think, questioned him about it and something, and he said something along the lines of, "Well, you're transphobic, but also you're criticizing the left too much," or something like this. It was criticizing the left that was part of it, and it is pure tribalism. You know, you see people. And like the kind of tribalism that, I mean, we've all seen it. You know, you get into a conversation with someone, you bring up one of these problems, they're very real, and they just block you. They cannot They cannot speak about it, because as soon as they do, they know that they are. I don't know. I always just think that.
Honestly, I was thinking about this morning on my run. About the sort of laughing at the fact that Josh Pryor was blocked and then blocked and blocked again. And one of the reasons that banned. And one of the reasons that I don't think that Josh Pryor and trans activists should be banned from Twitter is that I can defeat them with my arguments.
Yeah, that's why they banned you, Helen.
That they want me banned from Twitter is because I can defeat them with my arguments. This goes to all of us on our side, because our arguments are basically truth and questions about conflicts of interest. We're willing to say there's a conflict of interest here. We're prepared to say, can we try and find a solution? Can we find a workable solution for everyone? But they do not even want to acknowledge the conflict of interest. So the argument has to stop before it even begins. And that's why they want our side banned. And I genuinely don't give a shit if their side is banned.
Yeah. It's so true. It's like
moist tongue right now for some. Go on.
Really? Isn't your tongue always moist? I thought that was a given.
I think it's my energy drink. It's causing me grief.
Oh, I see.
Go on. Sorry.
Well, I'm sort of thrown. I'm sort of.
I'm expecting dribbles.
I know.
Okay,
moist tongue. Oh my god. Just before
coming on here, I saw another excellent story from Nutmeg, who is fantastic at it.
Nutmeg is just so great. I'm so
just amazing. And it was a Daily Mail story about some dad who genuinely shocked at this. Shocked at the fucking insanity and stupidity of it, quite frankly. Just some dad saying that his daughter started identifying as a boy at 18 months because they didn't like pigtails.
18 months. 18 months.
And there's a picture of, and this girl is a twin with a boy. And there's a picture, and apparently this girl didn't like dresses and pigtails. And there's a picture of her, and she's in the most god-awful fucking pink dress with pigtails with things around it. And I'm thinking, nobody would want to wear that fucking dress. It's absolutely horrible. And you can't run around in it. And you can't climb trees. And here's her twin brother. They go into the park. The bloke's able to climb the trees and things, and she's in this shit dress. No wonder she's going to be like, I don't want this. I want those clothes. And these parents, the fucking insane, stupid idiots, instead of saying, let's just put her in shorts or trousers, they're like, oh my God, she's a fucking boy. Oh, Jesus Christ, she's a boy. Let's cut her hair and give her boy.
She's not trans. She's just stylish. She's just got style.
I'm reading this story and I'm thinking, these parents, they've got jobs, they've got a house. They are obviously not that, not completely stupid and unable to live in the real world. So what the fuck is going on with this? It's like, their attitudes are so sort of 1950s that they simply cannot. They simply can't just look at a girl and think, oh, well, it just doesn't compute that I can't put her in pink dresses. And if she doesn't want to wear pink dresses, then she should be a boy.
Right. It's the whole idea that, you can still be masculine or like whatever your preferences are without the medicalizing and categorizing. You can just be. These people think you have to medicalize and categorize. It's the weirdest thing. If your boy likes to play with, My Little Ponies or whatever the hell, go nuts. You're still a boy. We don't have to suddenly find a new category for you and turn your penis into a, quote, sufficiently deep and fully functional vagina, I still can't get over that.
I've just realized, of course, the point is that most parents aren't going to put their girl in shorts and then go to the Daily Mail and say, look, I've dressed my kid in boys' clothes. These parents are just attention seekers, aren't they? That's what's going on here. They're like, oh, we can make some money or we can get attention. It's attention, isn't it?
But it's not just that. It's like someone said. So someone once said, if your daughter wants to play football, you buy her a pair of football boots. You don't buy her a fucking binder, And I saw one of those disgraceful BBC shows that were normalizing the use of binders and so on. Bunch of kids in the audience, one girl, and she's saying how she literally says that she wanted to start wearing a binder because she wants to start playing sports. She says that, and then she says, But I'm finding it a little bit hard to breathe, so it's sometimes hard to play sports because it's a bit hard to breathe now.
And that's interesting, isn't it? Because actually, I when I go cycling or running, I do wear a sports bra, which is really tight, and it squashes my boobs because I don't want them to be moving around.
Between Artie's wet tongue and your sports bra. I don't know if I'm going to make it to the end of this special.
No, let me demonstrate.
Oh my God.
Oh no, we're not beyond the watershed. But I'm there's a massive amount of confusion and conflation going on now, isn't there? About and it's the same with if you're a lesbian, or why aren't you a trans man? You should be a trans man. And if you want to play sports, or if you want to be comfortable, then comfort means being the other sex. The other sex's clothes. The sort of I do think that's sort of part of what's happening. Yeah, because we've always sort of dressed boys in comfortable clothes, and in fact, we've sort of created the world around men and boys, haven't we? Just like Caroline Carriado Perez's book did all of that research into the fact that the world has been created for men, and I do that's obviously part of it, isn't it? Like women and girls and society saying, well, we still need that category of women. We still need that other that we can judge ourselves on. So if you want to be like this, then you have to come over to this category. We can't actually just get rid of the categories altogether. We can't just say everyone can be equal, everyone can do this, because they actually need the women to be the sort of sex class that does all the work that isn't men.
Yes. It's interesting, isn't it? I wonder how much. Like I always think, all these guys who transition in middle age. There was one very funny one. He said, well, my wife has broken up with me. It's almost like page one of the transition. It's like, well, yeah, your wife broke up with you because she didn't know she was marrying a cross-dresser. That's why she's breaking up with you. But the thing is, I doubt that once he started cross-dressing, he was also going to take on the lion's share of the cleaning, of the washing. I would imagine those roles would stay fairly stable, even though he is now playing PlayStation games in high heels. Like I'd say the roles are kind of going to stay as they are, really.
Well, that's what the trans widows are always saying. They're always saying exactly that. Well, he wants to wear my clothes, but I'm still the one cleaning the dishes. And he's sitting around playing PlayStation 4. Exactly, and he's playing PlayStation 4 in my panties.
Yeah. I don't know. I guess if I could rise up in a rank in Rainbow Six, I might try the same, but I don't think it's working. Hey, by the way, can I just ask if anyone is playing Rainbow Six? I really need this squad. I'm solo queuing too much, and I cannot win. Sorry. Anyway, that's.
I know. I'm thinking, what is it? This is a computer game.
It is a computer game, I'm afraid, yes. But you need teammates because you need to communicate in it, and it's unlike a lot of other computer games in the sense that you do have to be able to speak to other people. But gosh, it's hard to find a good team. At the moment, my team is basically comprised of my son and his friends. They often don't want to.
Oh God, is your dad here again?
No, they're so much better than me. They're so amazing at it that it's just embarrassing.
That's what they're saying.
They're ordering me around. They order me around. They say, "Great, keep an eye on the window." And I'm like, okay, being ordered around by 13-year-olds.
You're not that bad. I've seen you playing some of the shooty pew pew games. Oh my God, I'm terrible. I can't run and shoot at the same time. You got to have one controller where you're aiming and shooting and the other one where you're running around. I can't do those two things at the same time. I only have one brain, not two. I don't know how these kids do it. It's just, oh my God.
Yeah.
Stick to, Donkey Kong, old stuff. That's what I'm stuck at.
It's interesting, isn't it? Because I noticed that computer games are coming up now as I'm hoping to have an interview soon with someone who Stella O'Malley spoke to on her podcast. And now he's using a pen name, So I better not say his real name by mistake. Yeah,
so maybe just avoid the name altogether.
But something's coming up. Something's coming up that I think is going to be more and more of a scandal. Quillette ran his series on it recently because no one else will, of course. But you know, and I have to say, whatever Quillette's, you know, whether they're a right-wing paper or not, well done to them for publishing these pieces. They're very important, and no one else is doing it. And they're always going to, and people are going to in the future be very grateful for the pieces that Quillette are publishing at the moment on this issue. But he's saying that he is seeing more and more boys now turn up who say they are trans, and the reasons they give are like shocking. You know, they're you know, one kid said it's because he likes lesbian porn. You know. I mean, you know, this, and he says it's becoming, it's going. You know, we've been used to the huge numbers of girls who are transitioning, but there's more and more boys coming up. You know, they're distressed for similar reasons. They do not like the sex roles that they see in pornography being given to men. They're, you know, perpetually aroused because when you're a teenage boy and there's a steady influx of porn. Why would you turn it off? Why would you turn off that tap? You know, teenage boys are not able to turn off that tap, you know?
Oh my God. Yeah. Like, I remember when my showers went from 2 minutes to like 75 minutes long. Like, if there was screens all the time, I would have been in the shower for my entire, you know, the cleanest.
You never washed away.
You would have come out just kind of like glowing, you know, just dazzling
tiny
people.
arty, teeny tiny arty, because you'd all been washed away.
Yeah, like a piece of soap, that just gets worn down. Yeah, absolutely. You know, and I feel sorry for these kids. I mean, I think that,
yes, I do.
You know, if we defeat this stuff, we then have to start talking about pornography. Not in the way
it's part of it. It's part of it, though, isn't it? It's all part of it.
Yes, but the thing is, you have to. I mean, this is going to get me in trouble with the rad femmes who I can't afford to alienate. They're my core audience at the moment. But the rad femmes, you know, they very rightly don't like pornography. I think they're absolutely right. I think the fact that it's an industry is really terrible, and I really hate the kind of Deliveroo, you know, gig economy version of pornography that's coming up in OnlyFans. I think that's a really, really terrible.
Yes, it's awful.
It's awful.
At this point, do I have to put my hand up and say I'm massively anti-pornography? Do I
no,
need to leave
no, absolutely. But my thing is, Helen, I just think that there needs to be a conversation about. I just think it's different. It's different for boys. Boys and girls have a different attitude towards visual stuff, you know, in the same way that girls have a different attitude towards physical stuff. You know, I always say that I don't want to get too graphic, but the kind of, you know.
But I will.
But sex toys, I think, have a different, you know, men don't buy sex toys, women buy sex toys. You know, it's a very, very different attitude towards sexual pleasure, you know, and it just needs to be managed. Not managed. Sorry, that's the wrong word. I do think that, you know, the best thing that could happen to the internet would be if every porn video just disappeared. That would make the world a better place instantly, you know. But I just think that there needs to be a conversation about boys and what they go through and how it feels for them. It's very different from how it feels for women. I think if those conversations happen, it will just make for better, not only better rules that, you know, take women into account when pornography is being discussed, but also boys and girls will be able to talk to each other easier and be able to understand each other better if some of these things are understood a little bit more.
I think that this is such a good point. When I was younger, I would have disputed massively. It suited my narrative to say there are no differences between men and women. There are no differences. The reason for this is quite obvious, I think, is because the differences that are between men and women have always been used against women.
Yes.
In society in terrible ways, you know, sort of keeping them down, saying that they can't vote, they, you know, there are professions that they can't go into, they're not as intelligent, etc. So obviously, you know, you want to sort of minimize these differences and pretend that they don't exist, and really dispute the fact that they don't exist. But it's actually the getting part of the trans movement that's made me realize that there are actually that say that there are differences between men and women. There are clearly differences between men and women, because of course we have physical differences in our bodies. Our bodies are physically different. So it stands to reason that we have different roles in reproduction. Now, they're obviously, again, I'm going to say these differences are hugely magnified in society to the detriment of women, but there are core differences, and there is a massive difference in power, not sort of physical power, not mental power. I'm going to say that, and the trans movement has really made me realise that there is very little difference. Women actually very, very intelligent. However, I've now come down to the fact to say, yes, there are differences, and not ignoring those differences, but taking those differences into account, into how we actually structure society to make it fairer for both.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I think that as you say, one of the things about the trans movement is that it comes from the lib fem position is that there are no differences between men and women whatsoever. And it's such a reality denying place to operate from, because that leads to the inevitable conclusion that men should play in women's sports, which could get women killed. So and when it comes to pornography, I think essentially what you have is, obviously testosterone does different things to boys, but also, external genitals and no pregnancy versus internal genitals and pregnancy is going to lead to a huge difference in how men and women see porn, but also see sex. So I think
behave, because they have to behave differently. Women have to be so much more careful, because the downside risk is massive to women, but the downside risk to men is nothing. In fact, it's all upside risk. Sex is all upside risk, apart from
it's one of the biggest in most cases, the differences between male and female are pretty minimal. But in the one where it's absolutely extremely different is in anything to do with reproduction and sexuality. From our genitals themselves to our sex drives. Male sex drive is so fundamentally different from female sex drive. That's why autogynephilia is primarily exclusively a male phenomenon of the male sex drive, which is target-based, whereas female sex drive is not target-based. It's about guarding. Because you can look at it sort of in I never wanted to get into kind of like evolutionary psychology, because I kind of find that a little off-putting. But you can see that men, they have one goal in life, which is to spread their seed. And women, sex could come with a lot more cost. You end up pregnant for several months. You're taking a child to term. It's going to transform.
And you look after that child for the rest of your life.
For the rest of your life. So
your body
women
changes.
are much
Men's
more guarded. So women are guarded about sexuality and sex. The cost is much higher, and men just want to have it like mad. But to take that back to teenagers and pornography, it's really interesting that obviously this has a terrible impact on women, and it's an audience of radical feminists for the most part. So we know that, and I'm not going to dismiss that. I'm just going to say we already know that. I want to bring up something else in addition to that, which is the impact it's having on men. I've spoken quite candidly with a lot of straight men who talk about their distress at straight porn. They get horny, they want to look at porn sometimes, but they find it very upsetting because it's very misogynistic, and men are just as upset by this sometimes. And I think this is really affecting boys. They don't like what they're seeing. It's upsetting, it's frightening, because it's degrading to women, and it's coercing men into behaving in ways that they just don't want to behave. So I think there's a real impact. I was very uncomfortable with the pictures of sexuality when I was a teen, of gay sexuality, because it didn't jive with the way I was developing my personal sexuality. And I could really see that boys with pornography everywhere, it's so aggressive. It's going to put them off entirely. Yeah,
there's a lot of, I'm hearing so many reports that fewer and fewer young people are having sex. It seems to be very much the discourse appears to be about sexuality, but not about sex. You know, they don't. I think they're putting that moment off as long as they can. And God, could you blame them with the very, you know, the first things they're seeing? You know, these websites like PornTube or whatever. If you Google porn, that's the first thing you're going to see, and they're the worst of the worst. You know, like if you look at the way they have like a square of videos, and then they have like algorithms that when you click on a video, so maybe you like this as well, and everything, and it's possible, I think, to get darker and darker and darker until you find yourself, you know, watching some really horrible stuff altogether. You know, I mean, I never have, because I always just kind of, a girl smiling at me is all I need. You know, I think that's very, you know, a beautiful girl smiling at me. That'll do me. But like the there's been too much on this show. I don't know who I like more. But you know, the you can see, if you're a kid, I don't know, curiosity and all these things. I can see kids disappearing down these holes, and you know, I think
well, yes, because they have far you know, they haven't got the world experience to think, okay, well, this is where I draw the line, this is wrong, they're exploring. I think it's incredibly dangerous. It's an incredibly dangerous tool. It's like fire in the hands of like teenage boys. I mean, for Christ's sake, that's never been a good thing.
No. I mean, it's like, you know, every society, there's always been evidence of, you know, erotic drawings and stuff like that, like, you know, Roman baths and all this sort of stuff, you know.
Mammoths.
But they what? Sorry.
Mammoths.
Mammoths. Yes, that's right. They even fancied mammoths.
Sexy mammoths. Very sexy mammoths.
But like the thing is, those you didn't see like caves with porn just all over the walls, and then another cave and there's more porn all over the walls. People, you know, told each other stories, and there was, you know, there was a dynamics to culture, you know, but there's no dynamics anymore. And what's worse, and this is the thing I find really worrying, is that I do believe that art is also gonna. Someone said about the internet. The internet is, you know, only the smartest people you know, could have invented the internet. But the internet is causing us to become the kind of people who would not be able to invent the internet. You know, it's turning us into consumers. You know, there's no reason to do anything. You know, now a lot of people are going to scoff at this because there's some very productive people out there and they're using the internet as well and they're doing it very well. But that we are becoming such consumers that it's going to be harder and harder to find like where is all the music at the moment? Where's all the bands? Where are all the bands gone? Do you know? Is there a big band at the moment?
Well, I'm actually hoping after COVID that there will be much more of a surge towards going out and doing physical things.
Yes,
hopefully, you know, there will be some upside to us all having been cooped up and doing sort of everything on Zoom. Before, can I just change the subject because we're coming to the end? And, it's just that a lot of people have been asking us to just mention the CEO of the Edinburgh Rape Crisis Centre. You saw that, right?
Yeah, extraordinary. Also, someone showed a photograph of them when they're not on Photoshop is very different, or when they're not in a photography studio is very different, very, very different.
Yes, I can imagine, and I think this really does show, it epitomizes, doesn't it, that idea that we've been talking about, that a big part of the trans movement is the purposeful breaking down of women's boundaries. There is no real greater boundary here to break down than to be the CEO of a male going for and wanting to be, like just wanting to be that idea that he thinks, right, I'm going to go for this job. This is the job that will validate me the best. To go for CEO of a place which looks after women after they've been subjected to the worst of male violence. It's the most incredible thing. But they let it happen. They let it happen.
Can you imagine this person's resume? I'll bet they have nothing on there about any kind of social work, nothing on there about any kind of trauma treatment or psychiatry or psychiatric help. This person has one qualification, which is that they have the magic T word. And this person has one reason for wanting to get in this place in the first place, which is that, like you said, they want to dominate women. And everybody's like, this is great. Which is
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's
I
really...
mean, there's very little to say about this. I mean, I think we have to mention it, but there is very little to say about it apart from incredulity that we have got to the stage and people are still celebrating. They've given him the job and people are celebrating it. They're saying, this is great. This is great. How is this great? It's not great for the women. It's not great. It's only great for the men.
Yeah, and apparently the rest of the staff at that Edinburgh place at that particular centre are all in their 20s and 30s. So they're obviously, their main concern is to appear trans-inclusive, woke. You know, appear woke, you know, diverse, with woke, no concern for women who maybe, like, did you see? Here's a report I saw recently, right? And this might give people some idea of what a rape victim might go through in this circumstance. There was a story recently that trans people who go senile can be traumatized by the existence of their new bodies, right? This was a story that I saw in a few different places. Like, you know, if you yourself can be traumatized by unexpectedly coming across a man, or when you're expecting a woman, or vice versa, how the fuck do they expect rape victims to feel when they go into a space like that and they're presented with a man who's presenting as a woman? It's outrageous. It's just absolutely outrageous.
It is outrageous, and I can only think. I mean, it's got to be more than just lack of empathy, hasn't it? This is thought out. Yes. And desired. This is sought out and desired, isn't it? There's no way this is just an accident and they've thought, oh well, I didn't realise this is purposeful, and it's appalling that it's been allowed to happen. Yeah,
no, it really is. It really is. By the way, just sorry to because I'm going to have to rush off in a sec, but Aidan Cross is saying he's in a band. I'm not saying there's no bands. I'm just saying there's no big ones at the moment, no kind of cult movement, no youth movement, you know, and I think I wonder if we're losing a creative edge. I don't know.
Yeah, well, this is what, to go back for a quick second to what that reporter, whose name, I can't remember which is their real name and which is their alias, so I won't use their name at all. But they and Stella O'Malley coined this term, sort of ruminative transition or something. There's almost like a new typology. We had the AGP transsexual, homosexual, transsexual, and these young boys coming up. It's not just about sex, which is a very important point they want to make. We were talking about the porn and how that's influenced these young boys. But there's other things too, which is that they're just ruminating on gender. You know, instead of just saying, okay, I can have some feminine attributes or some masculine attributes and I can wear what I want and I can express myself whatever way I want. It's this rumination over it and this obsession over it and trying to box it and medicalize it and categorize it. That's just something that's really scary. So it's impacting boys with like mental health problems, you know, with obsessive compulsive disorder and things like that. I know somebody who has OCD, gay person, but not so feminine and so gay that they would end up a homosexual transsexual. They just had mental health problems surrounding obsessive compulsive disorder, essentially. But once they joined the woke clique in school, and once they declared that they were trans, all treatment for any of their other psychiatric distress was just vanished, and everything became about trans, you know, their transness. Yeah,
you hear this all the time. You hear that all the kind of comorbidities to do with. I mean, look at Ellen Page. She's a perfect example. She is obviously, you know, has some problems with her body. You know, she seems anorexic to me. I could be wrong, but you know, when you see someone's bones to her face, that's not a person in good mental health. You know, it's just not. So, but anyway, that's a bit of a downweight end.
But let's say happy birthday to Fred.
Oh, happy birthday, Fred!
Happy birthday, Fred!
I'm glad you remembered Helen. Yes, our wonderful Jen, who runs our Twitter account and does a million other things for us. It's her lovely son's birthday, who I've seen often on video, and he's a sweet kid. So happy birthday, Fred! No. So yeah, I think that's it. I have to go and pick a young one up from school, his D&D class, which I'm very proud he's doing. Yeah, that was a good one. Let's do it again sometime. maybe next week at 4.
Excellent idea. Right, like and subscribe. And bye.
Yes. Bye-bye,
Thanks,
everyone.
y'all.
See ya. Bye.